we're going to learn how to create a value scale. And before I can start, I need to mix to make my gray. So what I've laid out here are my colors that I've been using to make my gray. And then I have white and the cobalt blue to create a value scale with. So I'm going to mix and make my gray first. And what we've learned, and I like to make a lot of gray so it doesn't run out. That's once you can make it, once you get it, you want to have a good amount of it so that you aren't having to stop and remix and make your gray. So here's my yellow and my red to make my orange. And again, I'm going to add a little bit at a time to my blue. A little more red because it has a greeny tint to it, but just a touch. See, that may be too much, honestly. We'll see. Oh, that looks pretty good. Okay. All right, great. So now I've got this nice gray. Do you notice just a little bit of paint goes a long way? And I'm still got a little bit on there, so I'm gonna really mix that up real well. Now I'm going to take a little bit of I could use this. I'm going to pull just a little bit of this so you can see an example, but I want to go a little darker, honestly. Put a little bit of this gray here. I'm going to take a little bit of this phthalo blue, or you could use the Prussian blue, just a darker blue, right? I'm going to add a little bit and add it to this gray. Again, if you didn't use the cobalt at all, if you just use the phthalo or a Prussian, you're going to have a darker gray to begin with. And you could do that. You don't have to use that color at all. So again, because my color turned a little gray-green, I'm adding a little red to neutralize it and get it back to gray. And I'm going to add a little bit, again, a little bit more blue. I'm just wanting to darken this up because we're going to make a value scale, and I want to have a value scale that goes from the lightest to the darkest or the darkest to the lightest in one color. And well, it can be any color, but we're going to practice mixing to make different values of one color so that you're able to do it with any color. I say practice it with one and see how you do with all the others. I mean, it allows you to be able to do all the others. Okay, a little bit more red. There we go. And as we talked about in class, you can write down how you make things if that helps you. Label or write down the colors, but that's why I'm here, you have that talking about what colors you're using for your painting. All right, and I'm going to just show you how this is gray. So I'm going to put a little bit here. I'm going to add a little bit of white to it so you can see it. Again, I can't always see my colors when it's that dark. It's like, well, I don't know what color that is. So that's nice. I mean, I can pop that on there so I can see it and have a memory, a record. All right, now I'm going to get rid of this. Okay, so now I've got my gray. If I needed to make more, I've got these colors ready. I've got my gray here. And I'm going to start with my lightest light is going to be white. Okay, so just that's the highlight. Now, it depends on the painting. It depends on what you're looking at. It may not be white, but in this case, our lightest light is going to be white, and our darkest dark is going to be that gray, that dark gray we just made. Okay. All right, and I've got my water here this time. So where is this blue on this scale between the white and the black, basically? I mean, look how dark that is, which is really quite wonderful. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to tint this blue with a little bit of white. So I'm pulling some blue here. I'm going to get a little bit of white, not a ton, just a little bit, to shift that value. A value is the lightness or the darkness of a color, or the lightness or the darkness of an object, area, or surface. In this case, we're dealing with color. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm going to scrape that up, and I like to take that and create a little pile, because with acrylics they dry fast and I don't want it to dry out. I'm going to put that there, and I'm going to set this next to it, and that's a big leap between values. So I'm going to take this again. Actually, I'm going to take a little bit of this color and add a little bit of this blue to it, and just let it go a hair darker. So I'm showing you how you can subtly shift the value. Okay. All right. And so I'm gathering that up. I'm going to put that here next to that one. Now, let's go ahead and start with our dark and work our way light. So I mix those up. Those are a good test, just so you can see. And let's go ahead and get this dark here. I'm going to put a little bit, and I'm going to add a little bit of blue to it. Actually, it's too much. It's a little bit of blue. I'll start to shift that color just a little bit. Now, this is going to be difficult to see, so I'm going to add a little more just so you can see. I'm starting to make it a little bluer, and I'm just going to take my brush, because I'm not using a lot of paint, and I'm going to paint it next to that one. Okay. And then I take my blue, and I add a little bit more. Again, this is how you can create a unified palette. You know, my dark, instead of just adding black, I'm adding these colorful colors they're all throughout my entire painting to make my value darker, which is quite beautiful. All right, now this time I'm going to add some of the blue and just add a touch of the black to it. Okay. I'll rinse my brush out, because I'm starting to go lighter, and I don't want my values to be, I don't want the paint from my brush to begin to affect the values as I start to go a little bit lighter. Okay, and so I would say maybe one more step. I'm just going to add a little bit more blue to this and call it a day for my darks. My darkest darks anyway. So you could make a million steps in between your dark and your light. And I'm just showing you how you can shift the color just a little bit. You know, some tips on when you would want to add black, or when you would want to add black to, add black to the blue, or add blue to the black. If I want it really dark, I'm just going to add a hint of that blue here. If I want to start to see more of the blue, but still have it darker, I'm going to add the dark to the blue. Okay, that way you're not wasting paint. All right, so now we're at this point where I can just pop down our true color right here. Boom. And there could be a step in between there. I mean, I could get pretty picky about that. And now we're at that point where I can go back and grab this one where I started to add the white. And that goes next to it. And here's one, the one that was before. It's a little bit lighter so you can start to see the progression. Okay, so instead of remix and take my blue and start all the way over and add it to, add the blue to the white, I'm going to take what I've already mixed here and see I still have that little dollop. It's still alive because I put it in a dollop instead of being spread thin. This is already dry. That's not going anywhere. It's not on my finger, right? But that dollop has stayed wet. Again, you can spray your palette, but I'm going to take this little dollop and I can begin to add a little bit of white to it. Just a touch, right? I'm going to do a little bit more. Maybe much. Okay. And just for the sake, I'm going to add just a hint more. Okay. And again, I want a clean brush when I do this part. So you can see there's a little step there in between those two. And then instead of adding white to this whole thing, I'm going to take a little bit here, move it over to the side, and add a little white to it. This up so you can see. I typically do not mix with my brushes. What happens if you get paint up here at this part of your brush, it's hard to get out, and when it dries, your bristles will start to fray. So I like mixing with palette knives. All right, and let's say you don't have any blue. Let's say you just need a light value. Just boom, you just need to have, and we actually need more steps in between here. But let's say you just need a really, really light value. What I'm going to do is make sure my blade is clean. I'm going to get my white out, have more white, and I'm going to, like it says here, more white, add the color to the white. So the circle is a big blob of white, the color's a little bit. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of this and add it to my white. And you can't really see the difference, I'm sure, so I'm just going to add a little bit more. See, sometimes we forget that a light value has just got a hint of color to it, and it's no longer going to be white. I'll put that right here. And so I can see the difference there. Hopefully you can. And I'm going to add a couple more jumps up here. So for here, I'm just going to take a little bit of, not that blue, this lighter blue that I made. And you could, let's say you don't have any of this mixed already, just a tiny, tiny touch from there. Okay. And there's another little step. I'm going to switch from, I don't like to mix with my brush, so I'm going to rinse him out real good. And I'm going to pull a little bit more in. Just a little bit, yep. I don't know if that changed very much. Let's see. I'm going to add just a little bit more. And then we should be good to go. My paint's dry, so I'm just going to touch a little bit of it. I'm talking like a little teeny. I'm going to wipe it off even. There we go. See, it changes it so fast. Okay, cool. Awesome. So there's our value scale. And again, if you want to make a lighter color, start with white. Add a little bit of color to the white. If you want to make a darker color, get your gray mixed. Make a good amount of it. See, I still have so much there. And then I can mix my color, whether it's yellow or red or purple, into my dark, or add hints of that dark into my color to get my darker values.